What's going on, guys? It's your boy. Welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be talking about Disney's newest animated movies out in theaters right now, Wish. Let's talk about it.
Modern Movie Review.
Alright, so right off the bat, I'm going to say a couple of things. For one, I am kind of sick right now, so if you hear me sniffling and you think my voice sounds a little weird at certain parts, it's because my throat not great right now. So, want to get that out of the way first. And then second of all, I want to go ahead and give this little disclaimer. Today, this movie had the ultimate test. I went to see this movie in theaters after work. I didn't sleep well last night, and I didn't have a great day at work, and it was long and exhausting, so it had the challenge of me having to stay awake throughout the entire movie, and I will say, it passed that test. There are other movies that I've seen this year that I've gone to after work, after working an 8-hour shift, and if I'm the only person in the theater, which today I was the only person in the theater, it's hard to stay awake the whole time. But this movie passed that test, and I don't know if it's really that big of a plus for the movie, or if it's that big of a plus for how short this movie is, because I will say this movie wasn't very long. So, to dive right into it, I want to go ahead and say, right off the bat, I think this movie is a little disappointing. I've been defending this movie for a little bit for the last couple of weeks because I think that it's weird that it's been getting so much hate before the movie comes out. I think that the big thing that's been bothering me about before this movie came out was people were complaining about the animation style, and I stick by what I said beforehand. I think that this animation style works really well for the movie. I think that it was pretty cool, and I like the whole fairy tale aesthetic that it gives. I think that it really does feel like a bedtime story, and I feel like if you look at it, it really feels like it's more illustrated as opposed to just animated. Which I personally think worked really well for this movie. I think it really benefited from having the 2D backgrounds because there were some scene transitions that worked really well because, like, we would be watching the city from the outskirts or whatever, and then we would jump into the scene, and now there's these 3D people coming out at us, and we could see the characters a little bit more, and I think it actually did really help for the most part with the characters sticking out, and I think for the most part, it really helped when there were more tense moments with the king. The king sticking out of the, like, background or whatever, I feel like really helped make him feel more intimidating, and it helped him feel more like an actual threat as opposed to like him being so two-dimensional. I think that they actually kind of made this animation style work really well with layering things. Like there are certain scenes where there's somebody who's the center of attention, but there's a lot of other characters on screen, and that one character who is the center of attention will stick out more than some of the background characters, which I think is like kind of a basic thing to say, but I think that for a lot of people who have been complaining about this animation style, I'd say watch the whole movie before you diss the entire movie on just the animation style alone. I think the animation style is pretty strong. And I like that, once again, it's a different kind of animation style. This year, some of the biggest animated movies that have come out this year have all had different animation styles, and I've really liked it. I think Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, obviously, in my opinion, takes the cake for the best animation styles with all the different characters being animated differently and the different universes being animated differently. That's cool. That's insanely great. Like, that's not going to be topped. But I do think, you know, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem being animated, like, it's kind of, like, gross and disgusting because they're, you know, creatures that live in sewers and stuff like that. And then, what's it called? Super Mario Bros. With the typical regular 3D animation. And now this, I think that it's nice seeing animation is back to being just art. It's not necessarily like, okay, it has to be 3D or, oh, it has to be 2D. This little blend, I think, worked relatively well. And I think that, like I said, feels like a fairy tale. I think it fits the movie. And I think that that is one of the few things that this movie does well. That being said, it doesn't do a lot well. I do think that something else about this movie that I'm going to kind of shine on the positive parts. This movie is supposed to be a culmination of 100 years of Disney, and it's supposed to be something that kind of makes you feel like what all of the other Disney movies have felt like in the past. And I think for the most part, it does a relatively good job with that. There are moments that feels like Encanto. There are moments that feels like Tangled. There are a couple of moments that feels like Snow White. There's a couple of moments that feel like kind of Cinderella in a sense. And I like the fact that you can feel that Disney magic all throughout the movie. And I really like that it does feel like a culmination of all these different films that I grew up watching. And I do think that the nostalgia points for that definitely helps the movie out a little bit. But that being said, if you're somebody who's going into this without having seen any of those, this movie feels very flat. And there doesn't feel like a lot going on because none of the characters really have their own characteristic traits. I think that the main character herself feels like a combination of, I'd say, probably Jasmine, Belle, and maybe a little bit of Anna from Frozen. And I think that that's not a great look. I think that for the most part, you want this character to stand out, you want them to be unique, and you want them to be their own character, but it is hard seeing her as anything other than a combination of a couple different Disney princesses we've already seen. And I think that she didn't really have any qualities that really made her stand out as a character, except for the fact that she had a wish, but I'm pretty sure it's basically like Rapunzel having her dream, and way out and deep inside, we all have a dream, whatever. This song is from Rapunzel. But what's it called? Personally, I think that this movie really lacked character. I think that I've said this already a little bit with that, but I think that for the most part, all of the side characters, none of them really have anything interesting going on. I think that the fact that they mirror the Seven Dwarfs is a little bit fun, but like at the same time, because they do that, it doesn't give any individual, what's it called, of the dwarves to like stand out a little bit. And I also hate the fact that it was so good and it was so subtle for a really long time. And then at one point, they called one who's grumpy, literally says something about being grumpy. And I was like, oh, it was such a good, subtle reference. And then they like basically called it out. And then what's it called? Sleepy was sleeping a lot. And I was just like, okay, that kind of sucks. Another thing interesting about the characters, I don't know if this is intentional. A lot of the characters looked kind of like other characters that we've seen before. What's it called? I don't know which one of the Seven Dwarfs he's supposed to look like. He's supposed to be, because I don't remember what the Seven Dwarfs are. But the guy who was like really happy and over the top, and maybe he was supposed to be like Dopey. Is Dopey one that's kind of like not as smart? I don't know. The friend who kind of seemed to be like an idiot who was wearing a beanie the entire time literally looked just like Fred from Big Hero 6. And I couldn't stop focusing on that. And then the bigger one, the one who was supposed to be like Sleepy, he literally looks just like Kristoff if they added maybe 20 or 30 pounds to Kristoff. So the entire movie, I was also focusing on the fact that all those characters didn't really look the same. And then, not the same, but the grumpy one, the one who was like really short, he kind of looked like and once again, I know this is not even remotely related. He kind of looked like a combination of the O'Hare man from the Lorax, and he kind of looked like Lord Farquaad. And I was like, something about all those like parallels and similarities kind of helped me like really not connect with this movie, because everything about it just felt too much like other movies that it didn't feel like its own thing. And that's something that I really didn't like about it, because it had a concept somewhere buried deep between all of these like little storylines and seeds that they were trying to plant that never got paid off, that I'm like, this movie could have been something special, but it just quite wasn't there. Now to talk about, in my opinion, the best thing about the movie, Chris Pine as villain. I love Chris Pine. I think that as a celebrity voice actor, he's one of the few celebrities who really gets into it. I think that he does a really good job with it. I think that this is Disney's return to villains, because in my opinion, I don't think they've really had a villain in any of their animated stuff recently. Like, what's it called? Some of their last animated projects are like the Strange World movie that came out last year. And for those of you guys who actually have heard of that and know what I'm talking about, thank you. I actually like that movie, and I hate the fact that it's something that most people are like, that was the worst thing ever. I didn't like that. Or a lot of people don't even know it exists. So either or, if you don't like it, cool. That's okay too. But what's it called? That movie didn't really have a villain. Frozen 2 didn't really have a villain. What's it called? I'm trying to think about some of the other ones that have came out recently. I haven't seen Raya and the Last Dragon. I want to watch that one though, because I've heard good things about it. But like, it feels like Disney hasn't had like a big like main villain in a long time, and it's crazy because like a lot of the really iconic characters from some of the earlier Disney movies are the villains. So like, okay, sorry, there was a weird cutoff. I got a phone call. That was weird. I don't like phone calls. They scare me, and I don't appreciate them. But that being said, this villain, I think, was really good. I think that Chris Pine really did a good job of playing him over the top. And I kind of feel like he feels like a stepfather that's not being respected. And, he kind of tries to, like, be way too cool so that people really love and appreciate him. And I like it because he's just an egotistical villain. I've kind of compared him before the movie came out to villains kind of like Hades, where like they can be intimidating if they need to be, but like for the most part they're going to be more like sitting in their throne, and they're going to be like, haha, I'm so cool, and like, oh my god, I'm great, and stuff like that. They're going to have like henchmen go do their things for them, and for the most part I was spot on with that. He was very similar to Hades in my opinion, which in my opinion one of the best Disney villains. You can come at me if you disagree. I love Hercules, and everything they do in that movie is so good. And what's it called? I like the fact that he's kind of like a comedic relief on top of just being the villain. And I think that during the earlier sequences, you can kind of like see where he's coming from. Obviously, you're not going to sympathize with him because he's over the top and he's doing really stupid things. But like, that's something that I also feel like the movie kind of failed on, is he kind of has a point, but they never actually like even take a little bit to think about the fact that he has a point. Because what's it called? The fact that he can't grant everybody's wish so he's only granting a couple of people's wishes, is actually kind of like a meaningful thing. Like, it kind of, in my opinion, makes sense, and I feel like there's a lot of really cool things that they could have done with that, and they could have dove it into the what's it called, villain's backstory a little bit more, made this movie a little bit more fleshed out here, and they just did it. They kind of just quickly, immediately were like, oh, by the way, they disagree about this one thing, and they never talk about it. They never really have a moment where the villain explains more in depth why he can't grant everybody's wishes, because in my opinion, his logic made sense. Hey, I can't grant everybody's wishes. Some people's wishes are too vague and they're going to be potentially dangerous. And if I grant everybody's wishes, it could potentially lead to catastrophe or whatever. And Asha, I believe is her name, the main princess in this movie, is immediately like, no, that's terrible. What is wrong with you? That's god-awful. And I'm like, why did we get a chance to actually, like, dive into that? Because, like, morally speaking, although, yeah, his morals are questionable, he has a point. Like, he can't grant every single person's wish, because if you grant every single person's wish, one, it's going to lose its value, and for two, it's going to potentially, like, one person's wish could offset, like, 30 people's wishes. If he wishes for something that's oddly specific, that could affect those other people. So I understand, like, he has to pick and choose which wishes he chooses, and I hate that that's never addressed in the movie, because that could have been a really interesting thing. That's a very small nitpick, though. I think that for the most part, though, Chris Pine's voice acting, like I said, great. And I think that there's one song in this entire movie that I think is really good and really meaningful, and it's the song that Chris Pine and the main actress, I don't remember. I'm gonna be honest, didn't do my research for this movie. I don't know who the main actress is, but the two main characters, the protagonist and the antagonist, sing a song together before the villain turns bad, and in my opinion, that song is great. That one is fantastic, and I really, really like that song. Other than that, the majority of these songs, base level, not great. For some reason, a lot of them felt more poppy and way too fast. Like, there was a song where she was supposed to be, like, sad because she just kind of got kicked out of her house, and she's running through the forest alone, and it starts off with her singing, like, super duper fast, and there's, like, a going on in the background, and I'm like, she's supposed to be sad right now. What is happening? But yeah, other than that, I think in this movie, it's okay. I think that the finale worked really well. I will say, I think that the final song and musical number of the movie does kind of retroactively fix a lot of that mess that happens in the middle. But there's just a lot of things that weren't as exciting for me as I was hoping it'd be. I really was expecting the goat to be a little bit funnier, and I was expecting him to have more moments. I kind of wanted him to be like Mushu from Mulan, or I wanted him to be kind of like Timon and Pumbaa from The Lion King. I really wanted him to be like one of those side characters who's really just like such a great comedic side character, but he brought nothing to the table, and that was very disappointing. Yeah. That being said, I'm going to rate this movie a solid 50 out of 100. I think that it is just good enough. It's not bad. I think that there's definitely stuff you can enjoy about this movie. I just personally didn't like it that much. I think that the animation worked well for the movie. I think that the villain worked well for the movie. But I think that overall the protagonist wasn't that interesting, and we didn't really get enough time to connect with either of the characters. And it didn't really teach a lesson at all. I feel like that's one of the big things this movie is missing, is a lot of Disney movies have a big, powerful lesson to learn in them, and this one didn't have any of that. But yeah, that being said, that was it for this video, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming by and checking it out. I love and appreciate you guys so much for watching. If you liked it, feel free to like and subscribe, and I will hopefully see you guys in the next one. Peace out. Bow. Bow. Bow.
He wanted me to drop a verse, I did this. We planned a day, and then we did this. Wanna be in love with the girls with the kisses. Don't give a damn, I'll written this. I like this when I run the distance. I run a 5K and go ballistics. I wanna live within the business. Buy more than what's on the clearances. You're getting big because I know you're a physicist. I wanna deny this shit, I'm unlimited.